Hello, fifth graders, and welcome to your math lesson for today. Before we get started, here's what you'll need. Your math resource binder, paper and pencil, or whiteboard and whiteboard marker. So go ahead and pause and go get those things if you need to, and then come on back. Yesterday, fifth graders, one of the things we worked on was order of operations. So the first thing I would like you to do is to please solve this problem using order of operations. You're going to pause. And once you've got it completed, come on back and see how you did. So remember with order of operations, fifth graders, that we start with parentheses. However, this problem does not have any parentheses. So we now look for exponents, which it also does not have. So now we look at multiplication and division. And remember, those two are on the same level. So we're looking left to right. Any multiplication or any division, left to right. So as we move across, the first example we see is 12 minus 4. Remember, we underline, we write the answer, and then we copy the problem down. Again, left to right. This is our next example of multiplication. So we write the answer after we've underlined, and then copy the rest of the problem down. Multiplication and division. We underline, write the answer, and copy the rest of the problem down. We have no more multiplication or division, so now we move to addition and subtraction. We underline left to right. We find the answer, copy the rest of the problem down. Our last step is the final operation here, subtraction, which when we subtract, we should get 11. So the correct answer was 11. Hopefully you got it. If not, you can always ask for help, and I will clarify anything that was confusing. So fifth graders, you can see from our objective for today that we are going to be using the distributive property. Remember yesterday we talked about the commutative property, which is the property that tells us we can add in any order or multiply in any order, as long as the problem has all addition or all multiplication. Then it does not matter the order. And we were talking yesterday about how can we prudently do multiplication and multiplication and addition to make it possible to do these problems a little bit more quickly. Okay, some of you got feedback when you did your homework, you just started doing the multiplication using a vertical algorithm or just following the order that was given to you. And remember, that was not the point of the assignment. The point of the assignment was to think about prudently grouping things together to make it easy for you to do. So if you did not watch the video yesterday, I imagine you probably had a lot of difficulty with the homework. So make sure, if that was you, that you go back, watch the video, practice along with me so that you're understanding what you're supposed to be doing. So for the distributive property, there are notes in your math resource binder. So I'm going to flip this around so that you can see, but you should be following along with me on these notes. Okay, you should see a sheet in your math resource binder that looks like this. So as we're looking at the distributive property, this is the type of problem that you would be able to apply the distributive property to. So thinking about our order of operations, one way for solving this problem, solution method 1, is just to follow order of operations, which tells us to do parentheses first. 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 times 8 is 64. For this particular problem, solution method 1 is probably the simplest. But there's going to be some types of problems, and especially when we get into our next lesson, doing a lot of mental math solutions, the distributive property is going to be quicker. So this would be our solution method 2. So distributive property uses this word distribute, right? So to distribute something is to sort of hand it or give it to all the people or all the things involved. So in this case, we're going to distribute the 8 to both addends and then add. What does that mean? We have an 8 here, and we're going to distribute it to each of these addends. So we're distributing the 8 to the 3. We're distributing it to the 5. So we would rewrite this as 8 times 3 plus 8 times 5. Okay. 8 times 3 is 24. And then we rewrite. 8 times 5 is 40. We rewrite, and we add these together to get 64. So you can see that either method that we use is going to get us 64. Sometimes method 1 is going to be the fastest, but other times the distributive property, solution method 2, is going to be the fastest, okay? So we're going to be doing some practice together, applying the distributive property, and then your homework is going to relate to this as well. So very first, we're just going to practice rewriting problems using the distributive property. What does that mean? For instance, this is what I'm going to ask you to do. Not solving. We will not be solving these problems yet. So what does this mean? Okay, so if we had, for instance, our answer, we're not going to find the value here. We're going to rewrite this using the distributive property. So remember, we're distributing this to each number, which means there's going to be a 3 in each place. And then we're going to fill in 3 times 17 plus 3 times 22. And you see how they're going to each place. Okay, let's try another one. So again, we're not finding the value here, at least not yet. We're distributing our 4 to each of these numbers. So 4 and 4, and then we want to keep these in order. Again, for addition, it doesn't necessarily matter, but for subtraction, it really does. So I want to get us in the habit of putting these in the order. Okay? I'm going to keep doing practice problems, and I want you to keep working with me. And when you feel ready, I want you to pause and try to solve it before I do and see how you're getting it. So remember, your answer is going to have multiplication in the parentheses and addition between it. So 32 goes in each, and we have our 5 and our 7, okay? I would like to point out that I like seeing these in order because once we start adding subtraction to the mix, the order is going to be really important. So it's just good practice now to keep the order in the right order for now, okay? So the 5 appears first, so it should be first here. The 7, the 7. I'm going to try a couple more before we switch gears. Again, as you're ready, pause. Try it without waiting for me to show you. The 35 should be in both. And then we have 1 and 8. The 42 is in both. And then we distribute the 19 and the 30. Let's try one more, and then we're going to go the opposite direction. If you have not paused and tried one on your own yet, now is definitely the time to make sure that you're doing so. How'd we do? Hopefully you're getting the hang of it. So fifth graders, as I hinted at you, we're going to do the opposite. So this is if we have already applied the distributive property. We're going to pull it out. So when we're looking at undoing the distributive property, what you want to look at is what number appears twice. That's the number that has been distributed, whichever number appears twice. It's not always going to be the first number. It could be the first or the second, or it could be a combination. So we really have to look and see what number has appeared twice. Okay, so our answer is going to be like this. So we're pulling out a number, which hopefully you notice the number that appears twice is 17. So that goes there. And then we're going to fill in, and again, in order, because when it comes to subtraction, the order matters. Okay, let's try a couple more where it is in the first place. And then I'll make it a little trickier for you. So again, our format for our answer is going to look like this. What number appears in both places? 19. So that's the number we pull out. Now we say 2 plus 5. We're going to do 2 more where the number that has been distributed is in the first spot. So again, our answer is going to be in this format. What number has appeared in both places? 27, and then we fill in the 1 and the 3. One more with this format. And again, if you have not paused and tried on your own yet, now is the time to make sure you're pausing and trying on your own. So hopefully you saw that 15 was in both spots, so that's what we pull out. And then we fill these in order. All right, I'm going to make it slightly more complicated, but the rules still apply. Okay, so our format is still going to be this kind of format, but we have to look at these 2 examples and see which number is repeated. I see 1 4 and 1 6, but 2 17s. That 2 17s, that tells us that this 17 needs to go here. So we pull out the 17 because that's what happens twice. And then we have 4 plus 6. And again, keeping that order. Let's try another one where I try to trick you a little bit. Our answer format stays the same. So again, looking here, what number do we see 2 of? We see 2 19s, so that's what gets pulled out, and then we fill in order. We're going to do one more before we switch gears a little bit and do some kind of rapid practice is my goal. Oops, that should be times. If you have not paused, please do so and try this one all on your own. So you should have seen that there are 2 22s. That's what we pull out. Now 4 plus 6. So 5th graders, we're going to do a bunch of practice somewhat rapidly, and this is going to be a lot like your homework. So you should be working along with me as we work through some of these problems. So again, we still are not finding the value of anything. Right now, we are just using the distributive property, okay? So it's kind of giving you an idea of doing what we just did. So here, we look and see, what do we have 2 of? I see 2 7s, so my 7 goes there. And then we fill in our 5 and our 2. Now here's the opposite direction. This is where we're distributing to both numbers. So there should be 11s in each, and then a 6 and a 9. I'm going to do a bunch of these kind of along with you, and then I'm going to have you guys try a bunch on your own. Okay, so again, we see that we're going to be distributing. The 5 gets distributed to both sets of parentheses, and then we fill in our 3 and 8 in order. In this case, we're pulling out a number, so which number do we pull out? Hopefully you see that we have 2 2s, so that gets pulled out. And then we fill our 9 and our 6 in order. Again, we're pulling out here. We see 2 13s, so we pull that out and then fill in our 4 and our 7. Here we're distributing, which means the 15 goes to both parentheses. We fill in our 9 and our 6. Again, we're distributing an 8 to both sets of parentheses, and we fill in our 12 and our 2. What are we pulling out here? Our 6. And then we fill in our 2. That should be a 2 plus 5. I kind of covered up the addition sign. We do 2 more pretty quickly, and then I'm going to ask you to do a few on your own. So here we are pulling out our 10, which is the number that appears twice, and then 4 and 7. And here we're distributing our 2, and we have 5 and 9. So 5th graders, I'm going to ask you to do these 4. So you're going to pause and solve these 4. And when you are done trying these 4, you're going to come on back and see how you did. So 5th graders, you should have distributed this 7 to both sets of parentheses and then filled in your 10 and 3. In this case, you should have pulled out a 5 and filled in your 13 and 9. Similar here, we're pulling out the number that we have 2 of, which is 9, and filling in our 5 and 11. And here we're distributing our 6 to each. 5th graders, how did you do? Hopefully that went okay for you. Okay, your homework is actually going to look a lot like this worksheet that we just did. You're going to be doing the exact same thing. You are not finding the answers to these problems. You are simply applying the distributive property and then doing the reverse, pulling out the distributive property. So good luck. Let me know if you have questions. I'm looking forward to seeing your work.